Hi, welcome back to Mathmastra. This is Sarita. Today in this class we are going to discuss what is magnitude of an angle and different types of angles. And in the last class we have seen one type of classification, that is positive angle and negative angle. In this class we will see another type of classification. Before going to that, we'll see what is magnitude of an angle. Magnitude of angle. See, yesterday we have seen different measurement methods of an angle. In that, we have seen different types of unit we are using to measure an angle. But in this, magnitude of an angle. So, the numerical what we have taken to represent an angle, that is 30 degrees, 60 degrees. So, that 30, 60 and 90 and so on, those represent magnitude of an angle. Then what is the exact definition of magnitude of an angle? We'll see now. See, this is the angle. This we call it as a vertex, and this is OA ray and this is OB ray. These we call it as a arms of the angle. OA and OB are arms of the angle, and we are representing this as a theta. So how we define a magnitude of an angle? See, this arm of an angle is the amount of turning. This is the amount of turning or amount of rotation where this OA arm completely coincides with the OB arm. So that amount of rotation, that amount of turning, we call it as a magnitude of an angle. Okay. So in this we are representing some 30 degrees. So this we are calling it as a magnitude, and these are the units that we measure. Okay. So and see the angle. So this is one angle. We are call it as a AOB. Okay, AOB angle. And see this angle, some POQ, and this we call it as a alpha angle. So can you make a difference between these two angles? Means which magnitude is greater in these two? Yes, obviously the magnitude of alpha is greater than magnitude of theta. How can you say? So the amount of opening here between the two arms, the amount of the opening is greater, then the magnitude will be greater. So that is the magnitude of an angle. Now we will go for what are different types of angles. Different types of angles. Types of angles. In the last class, we have seen one classification, that is positive angle and negative angle, depending on the direction, whether it is clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. So in this type of classification, by depending of the magnitude, means the range between those 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees. So we are representing with this magnitude, right? By depending on this magnitude, we are uh, classifying these type of angles. Okay. So we'll see one by one. This is the type of angle and magnitude or measure of an angle. and we'll see the figure related to that type of angle. The figure related to this type of angle. We'll see. The first one is null angle. Null angle. The name itself telling us the null angle is nothing but 0 degrees. So just now we have seen the amount of rotation. The amount of rotation we are calling it as means where the two arms coincide with each other. So that rotation we are calling it as a magnitude. Here the magnitude is 0 degrees. Here the magnitude is 0 degrees. See the picture. The two arms of an angle, the two arms of an angle, and this is OA ray and this is OB ray. The two arms of an angle completely coincide with each other without any rotation, means 0 degrees. Without any rotation, if they coincide, we call it as a null angle. And the second type of angle is acute angle. Acute angle. Here the magnitude of acute angle. So if the angle is between 0 and 90 degrees, 0 and 90 degrees, we call it as a acute angle. So the figure related to acute angle is like this. Means the angle always between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay. This is the figure related to acute angle. And the third one is right angle. So right angle, measures if the angle measures 90 degrees, then we call it as a right angle. See, the figure related to this is like this. Okay. So this is the right angle where the angle measures exactly 90 degrees. Whereas in the acute angle, it is strictly greater than 0 degrees and strictly less than 90 degrees. The angle must be in the range of 0 to 90 degrees. Then we call it as acute angle. If the measure is exactly 90 degrees, then we call it as a right angle. And the fourth one is obtuse angle. Obtuse angle. See, if the measure of an angle is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees, the measure of an angle is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees, we call it as a obtuse angle. So, the figure related to obtuse angle is, see, if this is the theta, then this is the figure of obtuse angle. Okay. And the next one is straight angle. Straight angle. If the measure of an angle is exactly equal to 180 degrees, then we call it as a straight angle. In this, the two arms of the angle, are exactly opposite to each other. Exactly opposite to each other. These are the two arms of the angle. This is in this OA arm is in this direction and OB arm in this direction. These two arms are exactly opposite in direction. So it measures exactly 180 degrees. Though that we call it as a straight angle. And the next one is reflex angle. Reflex angle. Here the measure of angle is between 180 degrees and 360 degrees. This we call it as a reflex angle. So the figure of this angle is like this. This is the angle. It measures greater than 180 degrees and less than 360 degrees. And the next one is complete angle. Complete angle. If the angle measures exactly 360 degrees, we call it as a complete angle. Here the figure is, and this is one arm of the angle, and this is another arm of the angle. Here the two arms of the angle are coincide with each other, but with a complete rotation. With complete rotation, we call it as a complete angle. So these are the different types of angles we have classified. Okay, and we'll move to next. What are related angles? The related angles are very important for solving the problems in the geometry. So we'll see what are the related angles. Related angles. What are related angles? Related angles are pairs of angles. Pairs of angles, those are related with some relation. So that is why we call it as a related angles. Those angles are must be always in pairs. Means the two angles we have to consider, and there is a relation between these two angles, and by depending on the relation we are calling it in with different names, and we'll see what are those related angles. The first one is complementary angles. Complementary angles. What are complementary angles? See here the angles. Complementary angles. So what is the relation in complementary angles? You take two angles A, and let us consider A and B are two angles. So what is the relation between these two angles? The sum of the two angles must be equal to 90 degrees. See, let us consider A and B be any two angles, be two angles, and the sum of these two angles, must be equal to 90 degrees. So the sum of the two angles must be equal to 90 degrees. Then we call them as a complementary angles. So see, and this is one angle A, and this is one angle B. So the sum of these two angles is equal to 90 degrees. So we can say these two angles are complementary angles. These two angles need not be in adjacent angles. They can be two different angles also. The only condition it should satisfy is sum of the two angles must be equal to 90 degrees. So that is the condition. And what is the complementary angle of theta? So we don't know the measure, we don't know the magnitude of the theta, but we are asking what is the complementary angle of theta. So the complementary angle of theta. So whatever may be the measure of theta, so the complementary angle of theta is always equal to 90 minus theta. See, this is one angle and this is another angle. If we sum up these two angles, we should get 90 degrees. So, theta plus 90 minus theta, you will get 90 degrees. That is why we call these two angles as a complementary angles. And what is the complementary angle of null angle? Null angle. Complementary angle of null angle is equal to right angle, because the null angle is representing 0 degrees and the right angle representing 90 degrees. Sum of these two angles must be equal to 90 degrees. So 0 plus 90 degrees is equal to 90 degrees. So the complementary angle of null angle is right angle. Right angle. Conversely, the complementary angle of right angle is null angle, and the complementary angle of acute angle, which is equal to acute angle only. See, what is acute angle? Acute angle is nothing but the angle must be between 0 and 90 degrees. So, if we take any angle 30 degrees. So let us take 30 degrees. This is the acute angle. So it is between the range of 0 and 90 degrees. So we have taken 30 degrees. What should be added to this angle to make it 90 degrees? So 60 degrees we have to add. So that these two angles will become a complementary angle. So this 60 angle and this is also an acute angle. So that is why whatever may be the acute angle you take, so the complementary angle of that acute angle is always again an acute angle. Okay. So this is what about complementary angles. We'll see the next type. The next type is supplementary angles. The next type is supplementary angles. So supplementary angles. What are supplementary angles? This is also a related angles. In this also the pair of angles, we take a pair of angles and those sum must be equal to 180 degrees. Those sum must be equal to 180 degrees. See, take any two angles, the two angles sum must be equal to 180 degrees. This is the relation of two angles, means we are representing two angles whose sum is equal to 180 degrees. That we call it as a supplementary angles. So the supplementary angles need not be only in one adjacent angles. So they can be two different angles also. What is the condition it should satisfy? The only condition is the sum of two angles must be equal to 180 degrees. So the supplementary angles, the sum of the two angles must be equal to 180 degrees. Okay. So in this, the supplementary angle of, you consider supplementary angle of theta, which is always equal to 180 minus theta. In the previous case also we have sum it up to 90 degrees. Now if the sum of these theta and 180 minus theta is equal to 180 degrees, we can say directly those two are supplementary angles. And what is the supplementary angle of null angle? If we take a null angle, the angle measures, null angle is nothing but 0 degrees. So we have to sum up to 180 degrees. So it is the 0 degrees and the supplementary angle of null angle is straight angle. Straight angle is nothing but it measures 180 degrees. That is why 0 plus 180 degrees equal to 180 degrees. So null angle, the supplementary angle of null angle is straight angle. And similarly, the supplementary angle of straight angle is equal to null angle. And the supplementary angle of acute angle is obtuse angle. See, for example, supplementary angles 90, 90. So 90 plus 90, 180 degrees. This is the one combination. And you can see 60, 120. So this is another combination. See, in this, these 60 degrees represent an acute angle. So what should be the next angle to make it a sum of 180 degrees? That must be greater than 90 only. Means it must be obtuse angle. So that if we add both the angles, we will get 180 degrees. So that is why supplementary angle of acute angle is always obtuse angle, and conversely supplementary angle of obtuse angle is equal to acute angle. And supplementary angle of right angle, supplementary angle of right angle, which is also equal to right angle only. See the 90-90 combination. This is one angle 90 degrees and this is right angle. Again, if we add one more right angle, then only it will sum up to 180 degrees. So supplementary angle of right angle is right angle only. So in this, we have a relation that the sum of two angles is equal to 180 degrees. Okay. So this is what about a supplementary angles. And we have one more type, that is conjugate angles. Conjugate angles. So what are conjugate angles? Conjugate angles are so nothing but a pair of angles. A pair of angles we have to take, and if we add those two angles, that must be equal to 360 degrees. If sum of the two angles must be equal to 360 degrees, then only we can say those are conjugate angles. For example, see 120 degrees, 240. If we sum of these two angles, which is equal to conjugate angles 360 degrees. And similarly, you can have 30, 330 degrees and so on. So these are different types of conjugate angles. Okay. So now conjugate angle of conjugate angle of theta is equal to, which is always equal to 360 minus theta. If we add these two angles, we will get 360. Then those angles we call it as a conjugate angles. And the conjugate angles of null angle, conjugate angle of null angle, which is equal to complete angle. Complete angle. See, null angle 0 degrees, complete angle 360 degrees. If we add up these two, 0 plus 360, we will get 360. So those two are conjugate angles. And conversely, conjugate angle of complete angle, which is equal to null angle. And conjugate angle of acute angle, conjugate angle of acute angle, which is equal to, see, this is the 30 degrees acute angle. So What is the combination that we should add to get 360 degrees? That must be reflex angle. Reflex angle is nothing but that angle must be between 180 degrees to 360 degrees. So if the angle is between the 180 and 360, then only it will sum up to 360 degrees. That is why the conjugate angle of acute angle is reflex angle. Reflex angle. And conjugate angle of the reflex angle is equal to acute angle. And conjugate angle of obtuse angle, which is equal to, see, this 120 degrees, it is obtuse angle. So again what we are adding? We are adding again obtuse angle. So that is why conjugate angle of obtuse angle is again obtuse angle. And we can have one more combination, see, 90 degrees and 270 degrees. In this, see, one we are right angle we are taking. So conjugate angle of conjugate angle of right angle is equal to, what is this? This must be reflex angle. So conjugate angle of right angle is reflex angle. Reflex angle. So these are the three types of related angles. Thank you.